And joining our discussion now is Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. As I read this book and I saw that invitation to history that you extended to Liz Cheney, I've been wondering just how heavy did that telephone feel in your hand during that important call to make that a bipartisan committee?
Well, it was very important for it to be bipartisan, and part of the conversation at that table later that Liz referenced, I said, I want this to be your product, and I want it to be very bipartisan. And unless you need my help, you will make your decisions. And that's why she thought it was other planet, like we were in another planet from the Republicans. But it was really important for us to have as much bipartisanship as possible. Isn't Liz Cheney just a remarkable, patriotic, courageous American? I'm so proud of the work that she did, as if should be presumptuous to be proud of her work. But we all should be, because she is making such a valuable contribution.
Well, she insists in this book that that contribution would not have been as important were it not for your involvement in the work of that committee. Let's listen to more of what she had to say about you in this book.
At the heart of all of this would be my working relationship with Nancy Pelosi. She did not try to micromanage the work of the January 6th committee, but she was there whenever we needed her. And over the next 18 months, every time I went to her with a concern, a proposed approach, or a request that she intervene with Democrats to help guide things in the right direction, she backed me up. Every time. A relationship that had been unimaginable just a few months earlier would now become indispensable.
You were the indispensable glue of that committee.
Well, I appreciate your saying that. The indispensable glue for all of us was the oath we take to our Constitution, the pledge we make to our flag, the pride we take in our country. That was our common ground, and that was very unifying.
She repeatedly goes into detail about situations where some of the House lawyers thought maybe the committee shouldn't push so hard, maybe they shouldn't go to subpoenas, and Liz Cheney wanted to push harder. She wanted to go to subpoenas, and every time you backed up Liz Cheney's perspective on this. She is so impressed repeatedly in this book with just how tough you wanted that committee to be.
Well, we had a job to do. We had a narrative to present to the American people about what happened at that time. And again, as you talked earlier about Liz's conversation with Kevin, one of the saddest things about January 6th, it was terrible. I'll never forgive them for the trauma that they caused many of the young staffers on Capitol Hill, many of the interns, many of the young people. They're idealistic, go there from a different perspective politically, but all patriotically, and the trauma that they caused them. But what's really the worst part of it was that after all was said and done, and we were determined to go back to the floor, and Mitch McConnell was part of it, Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell and I were determined to go back to the floor. The people said you should do this in the auditorium or you should do it tomorrow. And I said, we're going today. We're going to the floor, into our respective chambers. And we're going to show the world that we are there. We are in the Congress, the capital of the United States. But the sad part was that after all of that, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the poo, the fear, the violence, overwhelmingly, the Republicans voted not to support the work of the Electoral College. They voted against democracy. That was very, very sad. But again, Liz was a champion, so courageous. I'm so impressed by her. And her ideas were good, and they were consistent with what the other ideas. I think many of them came to some of the same conclusions about where our best strength our strongest arguments would be. but she was really quite the leader on the committee. And Benny Thompson, he was remarkable as well.
Liz Cheney records herself in the book as being very surprised that Kevin McCarthy was lying to her on January 6th. Kevin McCarthy, a member of your California congressional delegation, someone you're very familiar with, has now decided to give up and leave the Congress. What will Kevin McCarthy's congressional legacy be?
Well, let me just say this, Lawrence. With all due respect to you, your program, and your audience, I'm not here to talk about him. What we have to do is talk about the future. They have placed our democracy in jeopardy. We have to make sure that it is saved and it is strong, that our flag is still there with liberty and justice for all. So I'd rather just say one election is over. Let's go on to the next one. It's almost, we're into the election year almost. Let's talk about what is at stake. When we talk about liberty, we talk about what is at risk. What is at risk? The Affordable Care Act. The former president already said that was his target. And that is important. People have to know when we talk about democracy being at stake, it's your freedom to have health care, to have, if you have pre-existing conditions, or not to have limits on the care that you can receive. That list goes on and on about a woman's health in terms of her reproductive freedom. So let's not talk about them. Let's talk about what comes next. Let's give people hope. We can read the books. They're wonderful. I highly recommend them. I'm writing one myself. I'm sure everyone who had anything to do with that day has a version of the story they would like to tell. But our version has to be about the future. That's what we were protecting, our democracy, our future, for the children. And again, when you think of what is at stake, today we had another shooting. And what you saw in the Senate was to not even allow a bill to come up to discuss it. Today, we lost Norman Lear, this beautiful man, a super patriot who fought for us in World War II, who fought for our liberty with the people for the American way. He made us safe. He made us laugh. He made us better. So there's so much positive things, so many positive things that could be going on in our country, so many contributions that have been made. Let's not talk about what's his name's legacy might be. That's up to him to talk about, not me.
I have one more question for one more what's his name, which is your current successor as Speaker of the House, who says he wants to release the video, security video from the taken in the Congress on January 6th, but he wants to blur out the faces of everyone who was committing crimes.
No. Well, it's heartbreaking when you see what is happening there. And people should understand this is depriving them of the truth. And the truth is what will set us free. You have to know the facts of what happened. And why would he blur their faces? Because he knows it's an indictment on them to see their faces. It's just not right. And the impression that is given is that he's protecting them at the expense of the the law enforcement folks who are there to protect the Congress, the Capitol, the free and what the transition, the peaceful transition of government stood in the way of by these people. I heard that one of the debaters said it was an inside job. Is an inside job on the part of Donald Trump and his henchmen in the Congress of the United States.
What are the stakes for the world when they hear Donald Trump say that he will be a dictator on day one if he is elected president again? And what do dictators like Vladimir Putin hear in that statement?
Well, they hear a comrade in arms, but the fact is he's not going to win. And nothing less is at stake in this election than our democracy. And that democracy means your freedom to have access to health insurance, your own decision-making about your family's size and timing and the rest, your freedom to have education and read books that aren't banned, your ability to be who you want to be in this country. So democracy is a a value, it's a principle, but it also translates to your kitchen table about the freedom you have to make your choices about how your family goes forward. And as far as dictators in other countries, they recognize what they see in the former president. They see somebody who shares their concern for disdain for the press. The press is the guardian of our democracy. On the First Amendment, freedom of the press tells the story of what's going on. Accountability, transparency in governance and in our society. But they want to suppress the press. They want to characterize it in a very negative way. I don't like the press I get, but that doesn't mean I don't like the press. And so sometimes I don't like it. So in any event, it is a message to those people that they have a kindred soul that was trying to crawl back into the White House, but we cannot let that happen. And I say that with all the respect in the world for the people who may have voted for the former president. But they have to make a decision about our democracy, our flag, our Constitution, the future of our children in a democratic state that is a model to the world. And when those Putinized people see such a thing, they take joy in it because they want us to not be the model to the world that America is.
President Biden today just demanded that Congress deliver aid to Ukraine. Republicans now blocking that aid.
Well, that's most unfortunate, because the fact is, if they think they're saving money, they're not. The Ukrainians have been champions fighting for their democracy and for democracy writ large. If they were ever to lose, which is unthinkable, and we must make sure it doesn't happen, but if they were ever to lose, can you imagine how expensive it would be to fight Putin in other countries? It's just something that is unaffordable in terms of democracy. But if you're just counting dollars, if you're just doing a green eye shade on it, it's a false claim to say that you're going to save money. There is transparency, there is accountability, there is values-based, as well as the dollars, the values-based courage of the Ukrainian people. I hope that this is just a few of them. Many of them are very, very supportive of supporting Ukraine and the democracy there. At least that's what we see in the House. We have over 300 votes there. Mitch McConnell has been a champion for Ukraine in the Senate. I hope that he's not dragged down by those who don't share that view. But the fact is, they have to share the view that democracy must be saved and that the Ukrainians are a model to the country. And in fact, they have demonstrated, frankly, that they would be good members of NATO because they have fought with our weapons, with our skills, with our training, all the rest, and they've staved off the biggest army in Europe for now, what, almost going on 2 years, well, 21 months. And God bless them for their courage. God bless Zelensky for the model that he is to the world. And let's hope that this is just something for domestic consumption, that they want to hold people accountable, and that's fine. But let's get the job done, and let's do it soon, and let's do it before Christmas.
I know you've seen many 24-year-old congressional staffers at work on the Hill over the years, many of them then developing their careers up to the point where they become members of the House of Representatives. Liz Cheney's book tells the story of a 24-year-old staffer in the White House, Cassidy Hutchinson, who told the truth to Liz Cheney in their investigation in such a way that Liz Cheney and the other members of the committee decided she needs a hearing of her own. That's how important this witness is. What did you feel when you saw this 24-year-old White House staffer who had to make that decision to stand up and tell the truth in a way that the senior people in the White House refused to do?
We saw this young woman exude courage. Imagine the courage, patriotism, truth, truth. That's such a strong thing. But she had the courage to tell that. And that is not an easy thing to do. I myself was an employee on Capitol Hill right out of college, for my first year out of college, before Paul and I were married. So I could identify with her experience, but never with her courage. So she has been really a gift to our country. I pray for her because I just think that it was almost angelic to see her with the confidence and the clarity of message, the clear patriotism. But I'll tell you, courage is a separator. That separates people one from the other. Who has the courage to tell the story, to save our country, for the good of our democracy, for the good of our children, for the future. We thank her. We're grateful to her. It does, of course, bring tears to our eyes to see someone so young be so courageous. And again, just do the job. Get the job done.
She has been listening to you, and Cassidy Hutchinson is going to join us in a moment. Speaker Pelosi, thank you very, very much for joining us tonight. Can never thank you enough.
My pleasure, and I congratulate her on her greatness, and Liz as well. Thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Thank you.